Please watch over my daughter. Those were the words that changed everything. Sarah Mitchell stood in the doorway of Riley's motorcycle repair, rain soaking through her thin jacket, her face pale against the harsh, fluorescent lights. She'd been sick for months. That much was obvious from the hollowness in her cheeks, the dark circles under her eyes, the colorful scarf wrapped carefully around her head. But it was the quiet determination in her voice that made every head in the garage turn. Deacon Riley looked up from the Harley he'd been working on, wrench still in hand, and for the first time in 15 years, he felt something close to fear. If you believe in stories that show us what courage really looks like, subscribe now and join our community. Your support helps us share more stories of everyday heroes who change lives. Sarah's 8-year-old daughter, Emma, stood half hidden behind her mother, small fingers clutched tightly around a worn backpack strap, wide eyes taking in the intimidating sight of leather-clad men and chrome-covered machines. "I don't have much time left," Sarah continued, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. 3 months at best, according to my doctors. There's no family, no one I trust. I've been watching you, Mr. Riley. The way you treat people, the way you look after this neighborhood." Deacon set down his wrench, wiped his hands on a shop rag. The other mechanics had gone silent. Mike Bear Johnson, 300 pounds of muscle and tattoos, straightened up from an oil change. Tess Ramirez, the shop's only female mechanic, stepped out from beneath a lifted Triumph. All eyes on this woman they'd never met, making the kind of request no one ever wants to make. "Why me?" Deacon finally asked, his voice rough from years of cigarettes and hard living. "You don't know me." Sarah's lips curved into something too sad to be called a smile. "I know enough. I've lived in this neighborhood for 6 years. I've seen how you look out for people. How you fixed Mrs. Delgado's car for free when she couldn't make rent. How you gave Jimmy Torres a job when no one else would hire an ex-con." She paused, struggling for breath. "You're a good man who pretends not to be. That's exactly who I need right now." Deacon looked past her to the little girl, who was staring at a vintage Indian chief parked in the corner, curiosity momentarily overcoming her fear. Something twisted in his chest, a feeling he thought he'd buried years ago, along with the gold band he no longer wore. "You should sit down," he said, gesturing to the small break area in the back of the shop. "Tell me what you're asking, exactly." Sarah nodded, guiding Emma toward the battered couch that had seen better days. The mechanics returned to their work, but Deacon could feel their attention still focused on the unexpected visitors. When they were settled, Sarah spoke again, her voice lower now. "Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. It spread before they caught it. There are treatments, but they're just buying time now." She pulled Emma closer to her side. "My daughter has no one else. Her father left before she was born, and my parents died years ago. No siblings, no close friends who could take on raising a child." Emma leaned against her mother, eyes downcast now, as if she'd heard these terrible facts too many times already. "I've saved some money," Sarah continued. "Enough for funeral costs and maybe a year of expenses for Emma. I have insurance that will help with college someday, but she needs someone to care for her, to protect her, someone strong." Deacon ran a hand through his graying hair. "There are agencies for this, foster care." "Where she'll be just another case file," Sarah interrupted, a flash of fire in her eyes. "I've seen the system, Mr. Riley. I grew up in it. Some homes are good, many aren't, and she's already lost so much. She needs stability, not more uncertainty." Emma looked up at Deacon then, her small face serious beyond her years. "I can help," she said suddenly. "I'm good at being quiet. I don't eat much. I can fix things sometimes too." The simple offer, delivered with such earnestness, hit Deacon like a physical blow. He looked away, focusing on the tools hanging neatly on the far wall, trying to find his voice again. Bear had stopped pretending to work and was openly watching now, his massive frame leaning against a tool cabinet. "You don't know what you're asking," Deacon finally said. "I'm not. This isn't a place for a kid. I've got no experience with children. I work 16-hour days sometimes. I live above a motorcycle shop, for God's sake." Sarah reached into her purse, pulled out a manila envelope. "These are Emma's documents. Birth certificate, social security card, medical records. I've already spoken to a lawyer about granting you temporary guardianship that would become permanent when—" She stopped, glanced at Emma, then continued. "Afterward. There would be social worker visits, of course, but it's all arranged. All you need to do is say yes." Deacon stared at the envelope, not taking it. "Why are you so sure I'd do this?" Because 6 months ago my car broke down outside this shop, Sarah said. It was late. You were closed. But you saw me trying to get it started, came outside and fixed it anyway. Wouldn't take any money. You said we look out for each other in this neighborhood. I never forgot that. The memory came back to him. A fleeting interaction he'd barely thought about since. A woman with a beat-up Toyota and a sleeping child in the back seat. He hadn't even caught her name. That's not a reason to trust me with your daughter's life, Deacon said, his voice rough. Sarah met his eyes unflinchingly. I'm dying, Mr. Riley. Trust is a luxury I can't afford. I have to make choices with the information I have, and everything I've seen tells me you're a man who keeps his word and protects what's his. The shop had gone completely silent now. Even the radio had been turned off. Tess had moved closer, standing near Bear, both of them watching intently. Deacon felt the weight of their eyes along with Sarah's desperate hope. Emma had returned to examining the shop, her gaze lingering on the motorcycles with something like wonder. She likes engines, Sarah said softly, following Deacon's gaze to her daughter. Always has. Could name every part of a car engine by the time she was 6. Smart as a whip. Gets straight A's without even trying. Pride crept into her voice, briefly overpowering the exhaustion. She deserves a chance, Mr. Riley. Not pity, not the system. A real chance. Deacon stood abruptly, walked a few paces away, his back to them. His mind raced through every reason this was impossible, insane, doomed to failure. A man like him, with his history, his lifestyle, his demons, responsible for a child. He was barely responsible for himself some days. The silence stretched until Bear cleared his throat. "Boss," he said quietly. Just that one word, but Deacon understood the layers beneath it. They'd all heard Sarah's request. They were waiting for his answer, waiting to see what kind of man he really was. Deacon turned back, faced Sarah's unwavering gaze. "I need to think about it," he said finally. I can't just—" "I understand," Sarah said, though disappointment flickered across her face. "We're staying at the Pinewood Apartments, Unit 17B. Here's my number." She wrote it on a scrap of paper from her purse and placed it atop the manila envelope on the coffee table. "We don't have much time, but I understand you need to consider this carefully." She stood, reached for Emma's hand. "Come on, sweetie, we should let these people get back to work." Emma stood reluctantly, still eyeing the motorcycles. "Can I come back sometime just to look at the bikes?" she asked, her voice small but hopeful. Deacon found himself nodding before he could think better of it. "Yeah, kid, any time." A ghost of a smile crossed Sarah's tired face. "Thank you for listening," she said. "That's more than most people have done." They walked out the way they'd come, the bell over the door jangling as they stepped back into the rain. Deacon stared at the envelope on the table, feeling like it might burst into flames at any moment. "Boss?" Tess's voice broke the silence. "You're not actually considering this, are you?" Deacon didn't answer immediately. He picked up the envelope, tapped it against his palm. "Get back to work," he said finally. "We've got bikes to fix." But that night, after everyone had gone home, Deacon sat alone in his apartment above the shop, a tumbler of whiskey untouched beside him, staring at the contents of the envelope spread across his kitchen table. Emma's face smiled up at him from a school photo. 8 years old, dark hair like her mother's, bright eyes full of intelligence, and something else. Resilience, maybe. The same quality he'd seen in Sarah, that stubborn refusal to be broken by circumstances. He reached for his phone, dialed a number he rarely used. "Mitch, it's Deacon Riley. I need a favor, legal advice." On the other end, Mitchell Gaines, former motorcycle club member turned attorney, sounded surprised to hear from him. "What kind of trouble are you in now, Deacon?" "Not that kind," Deacon replied. "It's about guardianship of a minor." The silence on the other end stretched long enough that Deacon checked to make sure the call hadn't dropped. "You want to run that by me again?" Mitch finally said. Deacon took a deep breath and explained the situation. When he finished, Mitch let out a low whistle. "That's heavy, brother, and completely insane if you're actually considering it." "I know that," Deacon snapped. "I just need to know if it's even possible, legally. For you to become guardian to a complete stranger's kid? It's complicated but not impossible. Temporary guardianship is fairly straightforward if the mother consents. Permanent would require more hoops to jump through. Home studies, background checks." Deacon winced. "My record? Sealed juvenile offenses from 30 years ago? Probably not a deal-breaker. You've been clean since then. Own a legitimate business. Still, it's not going to be simple." Mitch paused. Are you really thinking about doing this? You, Mr. I work alone? Mr. Don't need nobody? Deacon's eyes drifted back to Emma's photo. I don't know, he admitted. Dad's crazy, right? The craziest, Mitch agreed, but also maybe the most important thing you'd ever do. Another long pause. Sleep on it at least. And call me tomorrow if you want me to look at those papers. After hanging up, Deacon poured the untouched whiskey down the sink. He needed a clear head for this decision, but as he lay in bed that night, sleep evaded him. Instead, his mind filled with memories he'd tried for years to forget. His own childhood, bouncing between relatives after his parents died, the motorcycle club that had become his real family in his teens and 20s, the wife who'd loved him despite his rough edges, the baby they'd planned but never had before cancer took her too. By morning, he'd made his decision. 3 days later, Sarah and Emma returned to the shop. This time Emma walked straight to the vintage Indian chief. No hesitation, her eyes wide with fascination. "Can I touch it?" she asked Deacon, who had been waiting for them. He nodded. "Careful. That's a 1946 model, worth more than everything else in this shop combined." Emma's fingers hovered reverently over the chrome handlebars. "It's beautiful," she breathed. Sarah watched them, a cautious hope in her eyes. "You called," she said simply. Deacon nodded. "I've been thinking about what you asked. Talk to my lawyer." He gestured toward the brake area. "We should talk privately." Sarah followed him while Emma stayed with Bear, who had already begun explaining the finer points of the Indian's engine to her attentive ears. When they were seated, Deacon slid a folder across the small table. "I've had my lawyer draw up papers. Temporary guardianship to start, with provisions for permanence when—" He stopped, unable to say the words. "After," he finished, just as she had days before. Sarah opened the folder with trembling fingers. "You're saying yes?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "I'm saying I'll try," Deacon corrected. "No guarantees I'll be any good at this, but you're right about one thing, I keep my word. If I take this on, I'll protect her with everything I have." Sarah pressed a hand to her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. "Thank you," she managed. "I know it's an impossible thing to ask, but thank you." Deacon shifted uncomfortably. "There are conditions," he said. "First, you'll move in here, both of you. There's a spare bedroom upstairs. You need to be part of this transition. Help her adjust. Help me learn what she needs." Sarah looked surprised. "You want us to live here in a motorcycle shop?" "Above it," he corrected. "It's not fancy, but it's clean. Safe neighborhood. Close to her school, you said?" She nodded. "Lincoln Elementary, about 6 blocks from here." "Second condition," Deacon continued. "I'm not doing this alone. My crew, they're part of this too. Tess, Bear, the others. They're good people. Emma needs more than just me. She needs a community." Sarah studied him. "You've really thought about this." "Haven't slept much the past few days," he admitted. "Third condition is the hardest." He met her eyes directly. "You fight like hell. Whatever treatments they're offering, you take them. Whatever time they're giving you, you try to stretch it. I don't care how tired you are or how much it hurts. You fight for every extra day with your daughter." Sarah's tears spilled over now. "That's not something I can promise. It doesn't work that way." "Try anyway," Deacon insisted, "because the truth is, no matter what I do, I won't be you. She needs her mother as long as possible." Sarah wiped her eyes, nodded. "I'm already fighting. Every single day." "Good," Deacon said gruffly. "Then we understand each other." He held out his hand. Sarah looked at it for a moment, then ignored it completely and hugged him instead. Deacon froze, arms at his sides, before awkwardly patting her back. Over her shoulder, he saw Emma watching them, a tentative smile spreading across her face. "When can we move in?" Sarah asked when she'd composed herself. "Whenever you're ready," Deacon said. "Today, even. I cleared out the spare room yesterday." Sarah looked stunned. "Today, just like that?" Deacon shrugged. "No point waiting. Besides, according to that medical file you gave me, you've got chemo tomorrow. Might be good to get settled first." The reality of their arrangement began to take shape that very evening. Bear and Tess helped bring Sarah and Emma's modest belongings from their apartment, mostly clothes, books, and a few precious photos. The spare bedroom, hastily cleaned and furnished with an additional twin bed Deacon had purchased, became their new home. Emma adapted with the remarkable resilience of childhood, exploring the apartment with curiosity, while Bear installed locks on the doors leading to the shop below. "Safety first, little lady," he told her seriously. "Shop's off limits unless one of us is with you." She nodded solemnly. "I understand. Lots of dangerous tools down there. Sarah moved more slowly, conserving her limited energy, arranging their few possessions with care. When she thought no one was looking, Deacon caught her leaning heavily against the wall, eyes closed in pain. That night, after Emma had fallen asleep, Sarah found Deacon sitting at the kitchen table reviewing invoices. "She's excited about living above a motorcycle shop," she said, lowering herself carefully into the chair across from him. "Says it's like something from a book." Deacon set down his paperwork. "Kids are adaptable. More than adults, usually," Sarah agreed. She hesitated. "I should tell you more about her. Her routines, what she likes, what scares her." "We have time for that," Deacon said, though they both knew that wasn't entirely true. "Right now you should rest." Sarah shook her head. "Rest doesn't help much anymore, and there's so much you need to know." Deacon closed his ledger, giving her his full attention. "All right, tell me." They talked for hours. Sarah told him about Emma's love of books and science, her allergies to strawberries and penicillin, her nightmares after watching scary movies. She explained Emma's school schedule, her few close friends, her favorite foods, and the ones she'd refused to touch. Deacon took notes, asked questions, committed important details to memory. It felt surreal, preparing to step into a role he'd never imagined for himself, learning the contours of a child's life he'd barely met. "She's strong," Sarah said finally, exhaustion evident in her voice. "Stronger than she should have to be, but she's still just a little girl who's about to lose everything familiar." Her voice caught. "She'll need patience, and stability, and someone who won't give up on her when it gets hard." Deacon met her gaze steadily. "I don't give up. Not on things that matter." Sarah nodded, seeming to find reassurance in his simple declaration. "I believe you." She stood slowly. "I should try to sleep. Tomorrow's going to be rough. I'll drive you to chemo," Deacon said, the words coming automatically. "Emma can stay here with Tess if you'd prefer, or come along. Whatever works better." Sarah paused, surprise flickering across her face. "Thank you. I think it might be good for her to stay here. She's seen enough hospitals lately." After she'd gone to bed, Deacon sat alone in the kitchen, wondering what the hell he'd gotten himself into. But there was no backing out now. He'd given his word. And despite all his flaws, Deacon Riley had never broken a promise. The next few weeks established a rhythm none of them had anticipated. Mornings were for breakfast together, with Bear often arriving early to cook his famous pancakes, claiming his mother's recipe needed quality control testing before Emma could try them. Deacon would drive Sarah to treatments while Emma spent time in the shop, learning the names of tools and parts under Tess's watchful eye. Afternoons meant homework at a small desk Deacon had installed in the corner of the office where Emma could work while still feeling part of the bustling shop activity. Evenings were quieter. Dinner together when Sarah felt up to eating, books read aloud, occasional movies carefully selected to avoid anything too frightening. Through it all, Sarah weakened visibly. The treatments that were supposed to buy her time seemed to steal what little she had left. Her already thin frame grew gaunt, her movements slower, her pain more evident despite efforts to hide it. But true to her word, and Deacon's third condition, she fought. She dragged herself to every treatment, swallowed every pill, endured every side effect without complaint. For Emma's sake, she mustered energy she didn't have, smiling through pain, engaging in conversations when she clearly wanted only sleep. And something unexpected happened along the way. The shop, Riley's motorcycle repair, began to transform. Not physically, though. Emma's drawings now decorated the break room walls, and a small bookshelf appeared in the office. The change was in the atmosphere, the dynamics between the rough men and women who worked there. They still cursed and argued, and told inappropriate jokes, but now they caught themselves glancing toward Emma before moderating their language. They still worked brutally long hours, but now they took turns checking on Sarah, bringing her tea or soup, or just sitting with her when the silence grew too heavy. They were still misfits and outcasts in many ways, ex-cons, recovered addicts, damaged souls finding redemption in grease and chrome. But now they had a purpose beyond motorcycles. They had Emma, and increasingly they had each other in a way they hadn't before. 6 weeks after moving in, Sarah collapsed in the bathroom. Deacon found her when Emma called out in alarm, her small voice tight with panic. He carried Sarah to her bed while Bear called an ambulance. "No hospital," Sarah protested weakly. "Not yet." "Not your call anymore," Deacon said firmly, checking her pulse. "Emma, get your mom some water, please." When the little girl left the room, he leaned closer to Sarah. "You promised to fight, remember? Her eyes, sunken now in her pale face, met his. "I'm so tired, Deacon." "I know," he said, gentler than he'd intended. "But not yet. Please." Something in his voice must have reached her, because she nodded slightly. "A few more days," she whispered. "That's all I can promise." The hospital kept her overnight for observation, pumped her full of fluids and medications, then sent her home with increased pain management and hospice care referrals. The message was clear. The end was approaching faster than anyone had anticipated. Deacon set up a rotation so Sarah was never alone. Bear, Tess, and the other mechanics took shifts sitting with her when they weren't working. Emma spent every moment she could at her mother's bedside, reading to her, telling her about the motorcycles she'd learned about, sometimes just holding her hand in silence. Deacon found himself in the unfamiliar role of maintaining normalcy in the midst of impending tragedy. He made sure Emma still attended school, still did her homework, still ate regular meals and went to bed at a reasonable hour. He fielded calls from the hospital, consulted with the hospice nurse, managed the growing stack of medical bills with the insurance information Sarah had provided. And late at night, when everyone else was asleep, he sat beside Sarah's bed and talked to her. Really talked, in a way he rarely did with anyone. He told her about his own losses, about the wife he'd loved and lost years ago, about the loneliness he'd wrapped around himself like armor ever since. He promised again that he would protect Emma, that he would make sure she remembered her mother, that he would do everything in his power to give her a good life. "I believe you," Sarah told him one night, her voice faint but clear. "I've watched you with her. You're already becoming the father she never had." Deacon looked away, uncomfortable with the observation. "I'm just keeping my word." Sarah's laugh was barely more than a breath. "You're doing more than that, and we both know it. You care about her. You love her already." Deacon couldn't deny it. Somehow, in just a few short weeks, Emma had worked her way past every defense he'd built over decades of careful isolation. Her curious questions, her serious expressions when concentrating on a task, her unexpected laughter when Bear told one of his terrible jokes, all of it had become essential to Deacon in a way he couldn't articulate. "She makes it easy," he admitted finally. Sarah's smile was tinged with both joy and sorrow. "She does. That's how I know you'll be okay together after I'm gone." 2 days later, Sarah called Emma to her bedside. Deacon stood in the doorway, giving them privacy while remaining close enough to intervene if needed. "I need you to be brave," Sarah told her daughter, each word clearly an effort. "Braver than any 8-year-old should have to be." Emma nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I don't want you to go, Mommy." "I know, baby. I don't want to leave you." Sarah stroked Emma's hair weakly. "But Deacon will take care of you, and Tess and Bear and all the others. They're your family now." "But they're not you," Emma whispered. Sarah pulled her daughter close with what little strength remained. "I'll always be with you. Every time you're brave, every time you're kind, every time you fix something broken. That's me, living on through you." She looked past Emma to where Deacon stood. "And you won't be alone. I promise." That night, with Emma finally asleep in the bed they'd moved into Deacon's room so Sarah could have space and quiet, Deacon sat beside Sarah again. Her breathing had grown labored, her pain evident despite the increased medication. "It's time to call the hospice nurse again," he said, reaching for the phone. Sarah's hand stopped him, her touch feather-light but determined. "Not yet. I need to ask you something first." Deacon set the phone down. "Anything." "When I'm gone," she said, each word precise despite her weakness, "there might be people who question your guardianship, distant relatives I've lost touch with, the system itself. They might try to take her from you." Deacon's jaw tightened. "Let them try." "Promise me," Sarah insisted. "Promise you won't let anyone take her away. Not unless she wants to go." "I promise," Deacon said without hesitation. Sarah studied his face, then nodded, satisfied. "Now you can call the nurse." Sarah Mitchell died 3 days later, in the early morning hours with Emma asleep in the next room and Deacon holding her hand. Her last words were simple: "Thank you for watching over my daughter." The funeral was small but not lonely. In addition to Deacon and Emma, the entire staff of Riley's motorcycle repair attended, along with several regular customers who'd come to know Sarah during her brief time living above the shop. Emma stood between Deacon and Bear, her small hand engulfed in Bear's massive one, her other hand clutching Deacon's with surprising strength. She didn't cry during the service. Her tears had been spent in private, in the safety of what was now her permanent home. It was after the funeral that the complications began, A distant cousin of Sarah's, Gregory Walters, appeared at the shop 2 weeks later, legal papers in hand, and a sympathetic expression that didn't reach his eyes. "I've only just heard about Sarah's passing," he told Deacon, standing in the shop office while Emma was at school. "Such a tragedy. Of course, I'm here to take custody of my little cousin." Deacon studied the man. Expensive suit, manicured nails, the overpowering scent of cologne, and felt an immediate distrust. "According to the legal guardianship papers Sarah and I filed, Emma stays with me." Gregory's smile tightened. "Yes, I've seen those documents. Quite irregular, wouldn't you say? A dying woman granting guardianship to a mechanic with no relation to the child. My lawyer believes any judge will overturn that arrangement in favor of actual family." "Where were you when Sarah was dying?" Deacon asked bluntly. "Where were you when she needed help with medical bills, with childcare, with basic survival?" Gregory waved a dismissive hand. "Sarah and I weren't close, I admit. Family disagreements from years ago. But blood is blood, Mr. Riley, and the courts tend to favor biological connections over arrangements of convenience." Deacon stood, using his height advantage to look down at the smaller man. "There was nothing convenient about Sarah's choice. She chose me specifically because she trusted me to put Emma first." "Yes, well," Gregory straightened his tie, "we'll let the court decide that, shall we? My lawyer will be in touch. In the meantime, I'll expect regular updates on my cousin's welfare." After he left, Deacon immediately called Mitch. "We've got a problem," he said without preamble. Mitch listened to the situation, then sighed heavily. "He's not entirely wrong, Deacon. Courts do favor blood relatives, even distant ones, especially against a single man with no parenting experience and a business that some might consider less than ideal for raising a child. So what do we do?" Mitch was quiet for a moment. "We fight. We gather character witnesses. We document everything you've done for Emma since she came to live with you. We emphasize Sarah's clear and specific wishes." He paused. "And we hope for a judge who values the best interest of the child over traditional family structures." The legal battle that followed tested every ounce of Deacon's resolve. Gregory Walters proved relentless, his expensive lawyers filing motion after motion, scheduling hearing after hearing, each one requiring Deacon to take time away from the shop and from Emma. The financial strain mounted as Mitch fought back, but Deacon refused to consider giving up. The worst part was explaining the situation to Emma. "This man says he's your family," Deacon told her one evening, sitting beside her on the couch in their apartment. "Your mom's cousin. He thinks you should live with him instead of here." Emma's face grew serious. "But I don't know him. Mom never talked about him." "I know, kiddo. But the court might think that blood relatives are better for you than—" He gestured vaguely around the apartment, with its mismatched furniture and the persistent smell of motor oil that never quite dissipated, despite their best efforts. Emma's expression hardened with a determination that reminded him painfully of Sarah. "I want to stay here. With you and Bear and Tess. Mom wanted me here." Deacon put his arm around her small shoulders. "Then that's what we'll fight for. But I need you to understand. It might get complicated. There might be social workers asking you questions, court appointments where you have to tell a judge what you want." "I'm not scared," Emma said, though her voice suggested otherwise. "I'll tell them the truth. This is my home now." The first court hearing was scheduled for a Thursday. Deacon closed the shop for the day, something he'd never done before, so the entire staff could attend in support. They all wore their best clothes, hair neatly combed, tattoos covered where possible. Emma sat between Deacon and Tess, wearing a dress Sarah had bought her months earlier, her dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. Gregory Walters sat across the aisle with his legal team, occasionally casting sympathetic glances toward Emma that the girl studiously ignored. Judge Eleanor Ramirez, no relation to Tess unfortunately, reviewed the case files with a neutral expression that revealed nothing of her thoughts. When she finally spoke, her voice was brisk and professional. "This is an unusual situation," she noted. "We have a non-relative guardian appointed by the mother before her death versus a blood relative who has come forward after the fact." She looked directly at Deacon. "Mr. Riley, I understand you've been caring for Emma since before Ms. Mitchell's passing?" "Yes, Your Honor," Deacon replied. "Sarah, Ms. Mitchell, and Emma moved in with me about 2 months before Sarah died. It was important to her that Emma have time to adjust, that I learn how to care for her properly." Judge Ramirez nodded. "And you have no prior experience raising children?" "No, Your Honor, but I'm learning." Gregory's lawyer stood. Your Honor, if I may, Mr. Riley runs a motorcycle repair shop. His home is literally above a garage full of dangerous equipment. He employs several individuals with criminal records. While his intentions may be admirable, this environment is clearly unsuitable for a child. Judge Ramirez held up a hand. I'm aware of Mr. Riley's occupation, Counselor. I'm also aware that Ms. Mitchell specifically chose this arrangement with full knowledge of these factors. She turned to Emma. Miss Mitchell, you're young, but this decision affects you directly. Would you be comfortable telling me your thoughts? Emma stood, small but determined. I want to stay with Deacon, she said clearly. Mom wanted me with him. She said he would keep me safe and teach me important things. She took a breath. I don't know Mr. Walters. Mom never talked about him, and I love living with Deacon and everyone at the shop. They're my family now. Judge Ramirez studied her. Thank you for your honesty, Emma. You may sit down. The judge reviewed her notes for several long moments before addressing the court again. I'm ordering a home study and full background checks for both potential guardians. I want reports from Emma's school regarding her attendance and performance since beginning to live with Mr. Riley. I also want to hear from character witnesses on both sides. She fixed both Deacon and Gregory with a stern look. This is not about who has the most expensive home or the most traditional family structure. This is about what's best for Emma. We'll reconvene in 2 weeks with more information. As they left the courthouse, Bear put a massive hand on Deacon's shoulder. 2 weeks, boss. We can handle that. Deacon wasn't so sure. Gregory Walters had resources, respectability, and the advantage of being an actual relative. What did Deacon have? A motorcycle shop, a makeshift family of misfits, and a promise he was determined not to break. The home study came first. A social worker named Ms. Chen, who arrived at the apartment with a clipboard and careful neutrality. She inspected every room, noting the newly installed safety locks on cabinets containing cleaning supplies, the fire extinguishers in both the apartment and shop, the separate bedroom that had been properly furnished for Emma. She has her own space, Deacon explained as they toured the apartment, but she's been sleeping in my room since Sarah died. Nightmares. Ms. Chen nodded, making notes. That's not uncommon after such a significant loss. How do you handle the nightmares? Deacon shifted uncomfortably. I sit with her. Tell her she's safe. Sometimes we read until she falls asleep again. And her education? I understand she's continuing at the same school? Yes, it's 6 blocks away. I walk her there every morning and either Tess or I pick her up in the afternoon. Her teacher says she's doing well considering. Her grades are still good. Ms. Chen made another note. And who watches her while you work? We've made arrangements. I've adjusted the shop hours so I'm available when she's not in school. When I need to work, she's either in the office with me or upstairs with Tess or Bear. We have a schedule. He hesitated. We're making it work. Ms. Chen's expression softened slightly. I can see that, Mr. Riley. Now I'd like to speak with Emma alone, if that's acceptable. Deacon nodded, though the request made his stomach tighten. She's downstairs in the office doing homework. I'll send her up. As he descended to the shop, he found himself worrying about what Emma might say. Would she tell Ms. Chen about the time he'd burned dinner so badly they had to order pizza, or the morning he'd forgotten to sign her permission slip for a field trip, or his complete ineptitude at helping with her math homework? Emma looked up from her desk when he entered the office. Is it my turn? She asked, seemingly unfazed by the process. Deacon nodded. Ms. Chen wants to talk to you upstairs. Just be honest, okay? Tell her how you really feel. Emma stood, organizing her homework papers neatly. I'm not worried, Deacon. I know what to say. As she passed him, she squeezed his hand briefly. It's going to be okay. Somehow, her certainty steadied him. While Emma spoke with Ms. Chen, Deacon busied himself in the shop, though he couldn't focus on anything requiring precision. Bear watched him with knowing eyes. Kid's smart, he said. She knows what's at stake. That's what worries me, Deacon replied. She shouldn't have to deal with any of this. She should be worrying about kid stuff, not court hearings and home studies. Bear shrugged his massive shoulders. Life doesn't always give us what we should have. Sometimes it gives us what we need instead. Before Deacon could respond, Ms. Chen appeared at the shop entrance, Emma beside her. Mr. Riley, I've completed my initial assessment. You'll receive a copy of my report before the next hearing. Her professional mask was firmly in place, giving no indication of her conclusions. Thank you for your cooperation. After she left, Deacon looked at Emma. How did it go? Emma considered the question seriously. I think it was good. She asked a lot of questions about you and Bear and Tess, about how we live and if I feel safe and happy. And what did you tell her? The truth, Emma said simply. That you're learning to be a dad, and sometimes you make mistakes, but you always try to fix them. That I miss Mom every day, but you help me remember the good things about her. That I feel safe here. Her honesty humbled him. Thank you for saying those things, Emma shrugged. It's just the truth. The background checks came next. Deacon knew his wasn't spotless. Juvenile offenses from decades ago, though sealed, plus a few minor infractions in his early 20s before he'd straightened out his life. Nothing violent, nothing involving children, but enough to raise questions. Gregory Walters, of course, had a pristine record, not even a parking ticket to mar his perfect citizenship. The character witnesses were the next hurdle. Mitch had advised Deacon to find respectable community members, not just his motorcycle shop crew, who could testify to his character. This proved more difficult than expected. Deacon had always kept to himself, maintaining professional but distant relationships with most people in his life. But as news of his situation spread through the neighborhood, unexpected allies emerged. Mrs. Delgado, the elderly woman whose car he'd fixed for free, insisted on testifying. Jimmy Torres, the ex-con Deacon had hired when no one else would, volunteered as well. Even Emma's teacher, Ms. Patel, offered to speak on Deacon's behalf, noting Emma's continued academic success despite her personal tragedy. By the time the 2-week period ended, Deacon had assembled a diverse group of supporters, not wealthy or influential like Gregory's witnesses, but honest and authentic in their belief that he was the right guardian for Emma. The night before the final hearing, Deacon tucked Emma into bed in her own room, a step toward normalcy they'd been working on together. "Big day tomorrow," he said, sitting on the edge of her bed. Emma nodded, clutching the stuffed bear Sarah had given her years before. "I'm not scared," she said, though her voice wavered slightly. "Yes, you are," Deacon said gently. "And that's okay. I'm scared too." Emma's eyes widened. "You are? But you're not scared of anything." Deacon smiled sadly. "I'm scared of lots of things, kiddo. Right now I'm scared of losing you." He took her small hand in his. "But no matter what happens tomorrow, I want you to know something important. Your mum trusted me to look after you, and that's what I'm going to do. Whether you're living here or somewhere else, I'll always be here for you, always." Emma launched herself at him, thin arms wrapping around his neck. "I don't want to go with that man. I want to stay with you." Deacon held her close, this child who had somehow become the center of his world in just a few short months. "Then that's what we'll fight for, together." The courtroom was more crowded for the final hearing. News of the unusual custody battle had spread, bringing curious onlookers along with the directly involved parties. Judge Ramirez called the court to order promptly at 9 a.m. "I've reviewed the home study reports, background checks, character witness statements, and school records," she began. "I've also taken into consideration Emma's expressed wishes and her mother's clear intent in her will and guardianship documents." She looked at Gregory Walters. "Mr. Walters, you offer Emma a traditional home with financial security and the connection to her extended family, limited though that connection has been in the past." She turned to Deacon. "Mr. Riley, you offer continuity, emotional stability, and a community of support that has clearly rallied around Emma during this difficult transition." The judge's expression remained neutral. "There is no perfect solution here. Both options have advantages and disadvantages." She paused, looking directly at Emma, who sat beside Deacon with her back straight and her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "However, based on all available evidence and placing the highest priority on Emma's emotional well-being during this period of grief and adjustment, I am upholding Sarah Mitchell's original guardianship designation." Deacon felt Emma's hand grab his, squeezing with surprising strength. "Deacon Riley will retain guardianship of Emma Mitchell, subject to regular check-ins with family services for the first year to ensure the continued suitability of the arrangement." She fixed Gregory with a stern look. "Mr. Walters, while I'm denying your petition for custody, I am ordering that Emma be permitted regular contact with her extended family, including yourself, should she wish it. Blood connections remain important, even when they're not the primary guardianship relationship." Gregory's face tightened with barely concealed anger, but he nodded curtly. "Of course, Your Honor. Family is my only concern." Judge Ramirez seemed unconvinced, but moved on. "Mr. Riley, I expect you to facilitate this contact and to continue providing Emma with the stable and nurturing environment described in Ms. Chen's report. Yes, Your Honor, Deacon replied, his voice rougher than usual with suppressed emotion. Thank you. The judge brought down her gavel. This matter is resolved, with the conditions stated. Court adjourned. The moment they stepped outside the courthouse, Bear lifted Emma onto his massive shoulders, grinning broadly. Told you it would work out, Squirt. Tess hugged Deacon briefly but fiercely. You did it, boss. Deacon shook his head. We did it. All of us. He looked up at Emma, perched high on Bear's shoulders, her smile brighter than he'd seen since before Sarah's death. Let's go home. Gregory Walters intercepted them before they reached Deacon's truck. His lawyer had already departed, leaving him to face them alone. This isn't over, he said quietly. I'll be watching. One mistake, one slip-up, and I'll be back in court before you can blink. Deacon stepped between Gregory and Emma. You heard the judge. You're welcome in Emma's life if she wants you there, but threats won't get you anywhere with me. Gregory's eyes narrowed. You think you've won, don't you? A biker playing daddy, it's almost amusing. I'm not playing anything, Deacon replied evenly. I'm keeping a promise to a woman who trusted me with what mattered most to her. He glanced back at Emma, still on Bear's shoulders but watching the exchange with serious eyes. And I'll keep that promise every day for the rest of my life. Gregory seemed about to respond, then thought better of it. With a final dismissive look, he turned and walked away. Tess put a hand on Deacon's arm. He's just angry he didn't get his way. Sarah's life insurance policy probably looked pretty attractive to a guy like that. Deacon nodded, though he remained troubled by the encounter. Let's not worry about him today. This is a day for celebrating. True to his word, Deacon closed the shop early and took everyone, the entire Riley's motorcycle repair crew, out for ice cream. They commandeered 3 tables at the local parlor, a rowdy group of leather-clad adults with one small girl at the center of it all. Emma, licking a chocolate cone with sprinkles, looked around at the unlikely family that had formed around her and smiled. Mum would have liked this, she said to Deacon, who sat beside her, seeing everyone together, happy. Deacon nodded, his throat tight with emotion he still wasn't entirely comfortable expressing. She would have. Do you think she knew, Emma asked suddenly, that it would be like this? That's why she picked you. Deacon considered the question. I think your mom was the smartest person I've ever met, he said finally. I think she saw possibilities that the rest of us couldn't see yet. That night, after everyone had gone home and Emma was asleep in her own bed, a victory in itself, Deacon sat alone in the kitchen. The events of the past few months played through his mind like a movie he couldn't quite believe was real. 6 months ago, he'd been a solitary man with a motorcycle shop and not much else. Now he was the legal guardian of an 8-year-old girl. His apartment had stuffed animals and children's books alongside his motorcycle magazines. His refrigerator displayed crayon drawings held up by magnets. His schedule revolved around school drop-offs and homework and bedtimes. And somehow, against all logic, it felt right. A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. He opened it to find Tess standing there, holding a small package. Sorry to stop by so late, she said, but I found this while cleaning the break room. It was behind the couch. She handed him the package, a simple envelope with Deacon's name written on it in Sarah's handwriting. I think she must have left it there before... She didn't finish the sentence. Deacon took the envelope, a weight settling in his chest. Thanks for bringing it. After Tess left, he sat at the kitchen table, staring at the envelope for several minutes before finally opening it. Inside was a letter and a small silver locket. He unfolded the letter, recognizing Sarah's handwriting, though shakier than usual, likely written near the end. Dear Deacon, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I hope I had the chance to say a proper goodbye, but in case I didn't, here it is. Thank you for taking in 2 strangers and making us family. Thank you for promising to care for my daughter when I no longer can. Thank you for showing me that good people still exist in this world. I've watched you with Emma these past weeks. I've seen how careful you are with her, how you listen to her, how you're learning to be what she needs. I want you to know something important. You were not my last choice or my only option. You were my first choice. From the moment you fixed my car that night and refused payment, I knew there was something special about you. The more I learned, the more certain I became. Emma needs someone strong but gentle, someone who will protect her fiercely but also let her grow. Someone who understands loss but hasn't let it destroy their capacity to love. She needs you, Deacon, and I think maybe you needed her too. The enclosed locket belonged to my grandmother. Inside is a picture of me and one of Emma. Please give it to her when the time feels right. Tell her that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who choose you, who stand beside you, who make you a promise and keep it no matter what. I'm at peace knowing she has you and the remarkable family you've built around yourselves at Riley's. Please don't grieve me too long. Live, love my daughter, and maybe, someday, love again yourself. You deserve that chance. With eternal gratitude and hope for the future you and Emma will build together, Sarah Deacon read the letter twice, then carefully folded it and placed it back in the envelope with the locket. He would give them both to Emma someday when she was ready, when the wound of Sarah's loss wasn't quite so raw. For now, he tucked them safely in his dresser drawer. In the morning, there would be breakfast to make, a school day to prepare for, a shop to run. The rhythm of their new life together would continue day by day, building something neither of them could have anticipated, but that somehow felt exactly right. "Thank you for watching over my daughter," Sarah had said with her final breath. And every day since, with every lunch packed, every nightmare soothed, every skinned knee bandaged, every proud moment shared, Deacon had tried to live up to that sacred trust. Not perfectly, never perfectly, but completely with everything he had to give. If you believe in second chances and the family we choose for ourselves, subscribe to our channel now. Your support helps us share more stories like this one. Tales of ordinary people facing extraordinary circumstances with courage and heart. From all of us, thank you for listening to this story of a promise kept and a new family formed in the most unexpected way.